Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial on how to fill out your forms correctly. And in this tutorial we are going to go over the lead-based paint disclosure form for the home sellers and houses that were pre-built before 1978. It is a federal requirement to fill out this form for these homes from prior to 1978. And before we dive deep into this form, just scan it real quick. There are some parts that the listing agent can pre-fill and have ready prior to sending out this form to multiple home buyers, multiple home buyer agents that need to provide this document to their home buyers. So let's begin first with the fields that we can pre-fill out, that the listing agent can have ready prior to sending this particular document out. First one up top is the seller's name. Let's say that the seller's name is James Brown, so we're going to key that in. Next up is the property address. Let's say that the property is 344 Vine Avenue. Let's say that the city is in Manhattan, just for the sake of this tutorial. State, New York. Zip code, random zip code here just for the example. And then we can enter in the phone number of the home seller, just a random number here. And that's pretty much it for that part to pre-fill. And then we always recommend that the home seller read the lead warning statement just to be more aware of what this document is and what it is for, and in regards to home purchases and possible inspections, etc. Seller disclosure is this part is the initial. We have this first section, which is the A, and then we have the second section which is B. So to go over here, we could just put the home seller's initials, in this case JB for James Brown. He is the home seller here. And then we're going to put here that the presence of lead-based paint and or lead-based paint hazards. And then we're going to check one below. In this situation, known lead-based paint and or lead-based paint hazards are present in the housing, so we can check that off. We can explain if it's in the kitchen, where it is, if it's in the attic, if it's in the bathroom or the garage, anywhere that it is present. You can explain in brief detail. And then the second option is that the seller has no knowledge of a lead-based paint and or lead-based paint hazards in the housing. So for section A, you can select either the top where we are aware that it is lead paint, that there is lead-based paint present in the house, or we can select the second box, which is that the seller has no knowledge of that lead-based paint hazard in the housing. And then part number B, the seller's initials, JB for James Brown, records and reports available to the seller. So if you selected the first box up here that the seller is aware of that lead-based paint, then in section B we can select that the seller has provided the purchaser with available records and reports pertaining to the lead-based paint and lead-based paint hazards in the housing. And then here you can just list the titles or the names of the documents that the seller can provide to the purchaser. So we would select that. Again, that's only in the event if the first checkbox up here is selected. But if the seller has no knowledge up here, then in section B, we're going to select that the seller has no reports or records. So that would be the difference on how to fill out both A and B. Again, this can be pre-filled out already by the listing agent. Then we're going to scroll down and we're going to add the agent's acknowledgement. In this case, let's say the agent is John Hill. So we are going to put here JH as the initial, that the agent has informed the seller of the seller's obligations under the 42 USC 4852D and is aware of his or her responsibility to ensure the compliance of that lead-based paint, whether they are aware of it or they have some knowledge of it. So the agent is acknowledging that the agent informed the seller of this situation. And then the certification of accuracy here in the bottom is practically it. And here we wrap this up so the seller can sign this, pre-sign it, and also the date when the seller signed this document. There are two, there's one part on the left, one part on the right. Again, if it's dual ownership of the property, if it's just one person, the agent can pre-fill and add their signature here and the date that they already filled out. So those are the fields that the listing agent can have already pre-filled, and the parts that remain blank until a home buyer comes along and is interested in this property. That is when the purchaser comes and fills out this part here in the middle. Let's go over it real quick. Purchaser acknowledgement. So the purchaser can add their initials. Let's say that the person buying this property is Alicia Keys. We put AK. Purchaser has received copies of all information listed above in the event that if there are some reports, etc. Part D is the purchaser has received the pamphlet to protect your family from lead in your home. Purchaser has either two options. Purchaser has received a 10-day opportunity or mutually agreed upon period to conduct a risk assessment or inspection for the presence of the lead-based paint and or lead-based paint hazards. That is one option. The second option is to waive the opportunity to conduct a risk assessment or inspection for the presence of lead-based paint and or lead-based paint hazards. The purchaser can check option number one for them to receive a 10-day opportunity, or purchaser can select option number two, that they waive that opportunity to conduct a risk assessment. It is recommendable that they do receive that opportunity, but it's up to the purchaser again if they want to waive that. And that is pretty much it. And then the purchaser will add their signature here and the date that they sign. So this form may have different dates here, but the idea is that everyone is aware and has signed and acknowledged that there is or is not lead-based paint in the property. And that is it for this sales disclosure for housing before 1978. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you in the next tutorial on how to fill more forms for your real estate transactions.